The clock is ticking and climate action has never been more critical. The global energy leaders Engie have been accelerating the transition towards a carbon-neutral economy through their bespoke sustainable energy and services solutions. Ahead of COP27, today we are joined by Daxita Rajcoomar. With over 16 years of success leading sustainability practices and initiatives for fast-paced, highly regulated organizations, she now serves as the Chief Sustainability Officer for Engie's operations in Africa, Middle East, and Asia. Thank you so much for joining us, Daxita. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us. Starting with the very basic, what role does sustainability play at Engie?
Well, if you know Engie, we have a very strong purpose, which is to act to accelerate the transition to a carbon-neutral economy, ensuring reduced energy consumption or energy efficiency, but at the same time offering environmentally friendly solutions. And I think with the strong purpose, it is a testament to Engie's values and what we do as a business. Because it's not only about just reconciling economic performance, but at the same time showing value in terms of positive impact on the environment and society in terms of the countries or the locations that we operate in. And just to give you an example, from our key objectives as a business, we have 19 non-financial KPIs, all focusing on people and planet, and 4 only on financial. And I think with this, having this bold, strong purpose, in 2021, as an organization, we kind of realigned and refocused our business objectives. And with that being said, it allowed us to have a longer sustainable impact and sustainable development as an organization, where we kind of refocused our activities from an industrial perspective. At the same time, ensuring greater efficiency as an organization and having, greater focus on clean technology as a business, promoting that sustainable development on the long term.
What are the building blocks of your sustainability strategy, and how does that translate into the projects you implement?
So I think when you think about sustainability, there's always fundamental building blocks, and it always starts off with ambition. For us as Engie, our long-term strategy is, yes, our net zero commitment by 2045. And it's basically a North Star for us, but at the same time, obviously, businesses need to grow beyond that. But if you have to pinpoint, our ambition is, yes, working towards our net zero goals by 2045. But also on the short term, we have the 2030 goals and ambitions, where we are SBTI, so Science-Based Targets Initiative certified. So we have the shorter and the long term. So ambition, I think, is a big building block in terms of foundation. And then the second building block when you build a sustainability strategy is around governance, strategy, and leadership. And with that in sight, if you have good leadership from top down and bottom up approach, it drives that strategy, it drives those ambitions and objectives as an entire organization. And I think any organization building that sustainability strategy needs to look at least these first 2 building blocks. And then when you look at Engie, when you look at just not only governance and strategy, it's driving those ambitions to greater objectives. And as I mentioned, we have 19 non-financial objectives that aligned to people and planet. So it's really about having the tools, systems, and processes in place that helps that development and helps that strategy on the longer term. Another building block I would definitely have to say is engagement. And as I mentioned earlier on, it's leadership, the leadership commitment. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges of implementing sustainability, is having that, as I mentioned, top-down, bottom-up approach, and having that full engagement from a workforce. And I'm glad to say that Engie has that, especially because we have a solid ambition. Our objectives are all aligned to that ambition and that goal. We work as an organization collectively engaging our staff, whether it's through awareness, trainings, to work towards that ambition. Another thing I think, that is important for those building blocks is innovation and technology. We are in a decade that requires urgency. especially around climate challenges. And I think bringing that innovation and technology to the table and to the forefront of that building block helps that sustainable development, helps the organization propel for that long-term kind of ambition, but also building on just not only midterm century goals, but building that sustainable strategy and resiliency that an organization needs. And lastly, I think part of that whole building block strategy is transparency. This is the key thing, is having the ability to be open, honest, but at the same time transparent to your stakeholders in terms of how you are meeting your objectives. So no use having a great ambition, great strategy, and having those, kind of objectives in the business, but then not being involved in terms of your stakeholders, allowing that transparency to be filtered through in terms of your progress. I think ultimately the last one, as I mentioned, is transparency and being able to open yourself up for criticism, really, in terms of what you are achieving, how you're achieving it, and what are those challenges when you achieve your commitments as an organization.
Basically measuring where you are today.
Absolutely.
Because you won't know where you need to be if you don't know.
Absolutely. I think, as I mentioned, tools, systems, measuring, monitoring, and having the last element of transparency is key to building that resilient, sustainable development organization that we all need to get to.
What role does collaboration play, and how important is it when it comes to climate sustainability?
I think it goes without saying, collaboration is super important, but it's the type of collaboration. I think, at the end of the day, we are in a decade of urgency. And it is that strong public-private partnerships, or that strong partnerships with your clients, or whether it is, throughout your entire value chain with your suppliers, that needs to be built. And when you think about strong partnerships, this is what I think opens the door to more innovation, more technology, more evolution, which is what is needed today. So building that as an organization, I think, is key, but it is working together rather than, saying we will work in silos and develop a technology and roll it out. We need our clients. We need our clients to share their challenges. We need our suppliers to work downstream or upstream to say that let's work together or collaboratively, whether it's through research and development or finding, those quick wins when it comes to a solution that helps the greater good in terms of sustainability. But yes, collaboration is key, but it's the right collaboration at the right sectors, right conversations, be it with your clientele or be it with your suppliers and within other sectors as well. I think this is the key to opening up more climate-friendly solutions, which is what is needed today.
So COP27 is just around the corner. What are you most excited about around COP27?
You're right, COP27 is less than a month away. There's a lot of anticipation around the discussions and what will be on the tables at COP27. And what was interesting is I read an article by the Foreign Minister, Sama Shukri, who had mentioned that we shouldn't be derailed by the conversations of the current situation and the current challenges that we are faced today with the geopolitical issues, the food and energy security issues that we are currently facing, but really take this as a leap forward on the urgency to the energy transition. And really it be a testament that we need to propel these conversations. So for me, I think this is an important outcome that I would like to see, is that how do developed nations manage the current challenges that they're faced with, but at the same time still propel their energy transition long term. So I'm quite anxious to see what's the conversations around from Europe, US, and how they maneuver around these conversations. The second thing that I'd like to see as an outcome is how do nations still manage and commit to the $100 billion climate fund that they promised in COP26. And 2023 is around the corner, so how do they still maintain that conversation and their commitments to reach that? And so Egypt being the voice of Africa, I would like to see what action happens afterwards, actually. So I am anxious. Unfortunately, there are a lot of challenges currently in the world. So I would like to see how the nations manage these two challenges, because climate impacts are being faced as we speak today. So how do you manage that, but at the same time invest in long-term sustainability?
That's exciting also because COP28 is going to be here in the UAE.
Yes.
So this speaks volumes about the leadership in the UAE. What do you have to say about UAE's efforts when it comes to climate sustainability?
UAE, I think, is in a strong positioning, especially around highlighting the solutions that are available and being tested in the country. So when you look at UAE, I think many of the locations or projects, when it comes to solar projects, they have the largest solar projects in the region, and that they're piloting hydrogen projects, they're piloting carbon capture projects, they're ambitious on their energy efficiency kind of angle. So UAE, I think, again, UAE consider themselves the solutions COP. And with that being said, I think places them in a good position to still be a country or a nation that can produce oil and gas, but at the same time still decarbonize the sector.
As you rightly mentioned, this is a critical decade for action. And everyone's talking about our goals for 2030 that we have set. And when it comes to Engie, how far ahead are you looking?
So yes, I agree with you. The conversation is always stops at 2050 and nothing thereafter. I see it as two tracks. You have the long-term goals, which is the mid-century 2050, and then you have the shorter-term goals, which is the 2030 ambitions. And this is, as they would say, is the decade of action. Because if we do not reach those mid-term goals by 2030, we are still going to feel those climate impacts, but the extent and the exposure kind of determines as we progress. So for Engie itself, as I mentioned, is that we do have a midterm goal, which is 2045, not necessarily 2050, but 2045 as our long-term strategy. But having our 2030 decarbonized, ambition and objective, which is science-based targets certified, pushes us in a good position, is because at the end of the day, we will decarbonize to meet that well below 2 degrees trajectory and based on science. So as much as we reach those midterm goals by 2030 and having that strong strategy in place, we still need to look to the future, and that is why our 2045. But it's not only just, as I said, 2045 and we stop there. It's about maintaining that momentum in terms of making sure we give back from a net positive perspective and not sitting in the same cycle and ecosystem of climate issues again. But being a responsible organization, I think it's key. Or being a responsible organization that not only reconciles economic performance, but also developing those solutions that has a positive impact on the environment. This is what the key is. As you said, midterm century, I think this is great to have one target, but I think it's in bite-sized chunks that we need to work towards. So it's great that we as an organization, holistically, that we have those mid-century targets, but I think as organizations kind of strengthen and develop over time, they should look beyond that as well.
Would you like to highlight some of Engie's projects that were done this year?
So over the last maybe 18 months, there's been many kind of developments. And some of them have been around maybe our partnerships with Mazda, where in 2021, we signed a $5 billion partnership with Mazda to look at green hydrogen development with the intention of developing a 2 gigawatt by 2030. that was one instrumental project that I think is what is needed when I talk about the solutions in the next 8 years that is needed going forward. The second type of projects that we have is also on green hydrogen, but it's a project in South Africa where we work with our client to decarbonize the mining industry. And again, working closer with our clients is what Engie is about at the same time, is to address some of those solutions and challenges of our client to decarbonize their value chains or certain kind of challenges that they may have. So with our project in South Africa, it's called NewGen, which is to produce green hydrogens to fuel hydrogen or create hydrogen trucks and reduce the fuel or diesel consumption of these trucks. And that is the second instrumental project I think that needs to be highlighted. Then we're looking at our green desalination projects in the region, 2 in UAE and 1 we have just been awarded recently in the UAE, where traditionally desalination in this region was always coupled with power generation. And as we become more efficient within the countries that we operate in, you start to see desalination still being a priority because you're trying to address water scarcity in this region, but then you don't want to be stigmatized between the traditional power generation, which is either through burning of natural gas. So the 3 projects that we will have is running desalination through reverse osmosis, of course, but at the same time being powered by renewable energy. So that is a great, testament that it can be done through clean power and still address water scarcity kind of projects. And then on an efficiency basis, there's many B2B kind of projects that we have with clientele and B2G, where we've just recently signed our partnership with the Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure, where we will work with them on feasibilities, on ensuring energy efficiency of their infrastructure, and helping, again, our clientele on their journey to decarbonize. So this is, just off the tip, some of the projects that we have in the last, 18 months.
Coming to you for my last question, what has the journey been like for you in being responsible for sustainability at such a large organization? Tell us the tale of your sustainability journey.
Wow. So yes, I think, being in the industry for over 16 years, I've seen tremendous change, tremendous improvement and acceleration when you think about where we were 16 years ago to where we are now. But, if I have to really say, last 16 years, sustainability wasn't really on the top agenda for most organizations. For me, the challenge was always getting the buy-in from top management or leadership, because at the end of the day, you had to show the win-win, the financial return of investment on certain investments. Especially when you think about sustainability, you think that it is a high capex, but at the same time, over long term, you have your ROI kind of coming back. Rolling forward and fast forward to where we are today, you see, I think the one good thing I have to say the pandemic has taught us is the urgency to address some of these softer sides of sustainability, and that being, health and well-being, climate impacts that we start to see today. So I think the one good thing from the pandemic is to teach leadership that investments need to be, focused into these sectors or these elements of a business to build that resiliency, to build that sustainable development long term. And so, as I said, the agenda and the conversations these days, and I really would say it's pre-pandemic a little bit, but in the last 5 years have been around sustainability. And it's getting the well-deserved attention that it needs to have, especially as we head to the future. So my journey has been much easier in the last 5 years when we start to talk about implementation of sustainability. I've been with Engie for 2 years, and when I entered the organization, it was a breath of fresh air. Why? Because I could feel it being embedded into the business ethos of the business, which actually helped my journey a little bit, because at the end of the day, we've already had that leadership buy-in. It was already built and entrenched into the DNA of the organization, from processes, systems. So, working and creating more of that awareness just became easier. So I have to say, if organizations, and I think maybe the last message that I would leave is that if organizations start to build sustainability into the thread of the business, it becomes easier to build a resilient organization over long term. And, ultimately, the pandemic has taught us the importance of this. So the faster we integrate, be it your ESG elements or your sustainability kind of pillars into the business processes, the better and more efficient your business becomes.
What a wonderful conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Almas.
A great conversation with a truly inspiring change maker of today. For more insightful conversations and exclusive content, stay tuned to MEP Middle East. This is me, Almas Tholot, your editor, signing off.